So today's agenda, we just moved through part of it, that is moving through the grounding slides. And of course, again, my name is David Mitchell. I am the program director for Arts and Entertainment Districts and County Arts Agencies. Quite frankly, I thought it was time for us to have a conversation. That is the A&E leadership and myself, and figuring out how we can be more cohesive and more supportive of each other, because we take on a ton of work during the course of the year, particularly you take on a ton of work through the course of the year. And if there are ways that we can, that is MSAC, better support you, or you all support each other, then we need to explore that. So today's conversation is just that. Throughout the year, I ask you all for a ton of reports, and in those reports, many of you have expressed the need to learn more about how to identify partners and or build stronger partnerships. And of course, there's always the ongoing question of how am I going to get all this work done, and it's just me, or it's me and one person. And so again, some of you have figured out strategies about how to tackle those tough challenges of identifying good partners and building your staff capacity, and we want to be able to share. So this brings us to today, and we have assembled a small panel of executive directors from 4 of our A&E districts, and well, the next part is for them to introduce themselves. And Emily, we're going to start with you because I've asked Emily to be our facilitator for today's conversation. So Emily, you want to jump in here?
Great. Thank you so much. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone that we are really excited to speak with the group today and share some of our experiences. If you weren't able to join in the very beginning of the call, we just want to say that we have a lot to talk about. So we're going to spend the next roughly 50 minutes or so going through our questions and our conversation, but feel free to put any questions in the chat, although we will reach those at the end of the presentation, just so that we make sure we can get through everything. All right, so I believe we can go to the next slide. Wonderful. All right, so here are all of our panelists today, and I will actually kick us off with an intro for the Bromo Arts District. So if you can go to the next slide, please. All right, so my name is Emily Brieter. I'm the Executive Director for the Bromo Arts District and have a dual position as the Director of Economic Development and Arts Initiatives at Downtown Partnership of Baltimore, which is our management entity, and I will speak about that more in a little bit. Our district was established in 2012, and actually, could you go to the next slide, please? You'll see a map, a very small map of our district, but it's a 117-acre district in downtown Baltimore. It's located a few blocks away from our Inner Harbor, from the Orioles and Ravens stadiums, near neighborhoods like Mount Vernon and Seton Hill, and very close to a lot of our medical systems in the city as well. We have roughly 30 creative organizations that call the district home, including theaters, galleries, performance venues. Some of the anchor institutions that you might be familiar with are the Hippodrome Theater, UB Blake Cultural Center, the Bromo Tower, which of course is our namesake, and many other spaces in addition to Lexington Market. We have lots of really small creative organizations as well, which is wonderful. And we have hundreds of artists that live and or work in the district. Next slide, please. I'm just keeping you updated on some pretty pictures while I speak. So I am the sole staff member for the Bromo Arts District, so it is just the executive director, but I have a board of 12 directors. Again, I will speak about some of our board development a little bit later on in the conversation, but I really focus on my role as being an arts administrator and advocate, and really doing as much as possible, of course, to provide support, whether it is administratively or otherwise, to our creative stakeholders, so our organizations and artists. Downtown Partnership of Baltimore is our management entity. As I mentioned, it's a larger nonprofit that manages the Downtown Business Improvement District in Baltimore City, although Bromo is a separate 501c3. We have over 400 events that take place in the district that are led and hosted by our creative organizations, which is really wonderful, although the Bromo Arts District is responsible for 2 large Bromo art walks, which I will speak about in a little bit as well. So I'm going to pass this over to Brion Gill at the Black Arts District to introduce herself and the district.
Hey, everybody. Again, my name is Brion Gill. I prefer to go by Lady Brion. I am a spoken word poet here in Baltimore, and hence you get the name Lady Brion. That's my stage name, but that's what everybody knows me by. I'm also the executive director and founder of the Black Arts District. The Black Arts District is the newest arts and entertainment district in Baltimore. We are also the westernmost district in Baltimore, running along the Pennsylvania Avenue Business Corridor. We were established in 2019. And we have a district that is about, and whoever is controlling the slides, you know, you can flip through them at your leisure, however you're feeling, whenever. Okay. So yes, we have a 149-acre district, again, primarily running along the Pennsylvania Avenue Business Corridor. But we have sort of a jagged map that local historians and stakeholders in West Baltimore plotted different historic arts and entertainment-based sites throughout the district, and we fashioned the map around it. So yeah, for the Black Arts District, our programming is really, it's interesting because it's dual focused, right? So as a specifically Black Arts and Entertainment District, we focus on creatives in West Baltimore and residents in West Baltimore, but we also expand our programming to the greater Baltimore area because, again, our constituents are both West Baltimoreans, but also Black creatives in Baltimore City. And so we have programs that are expansive or locally focused. We sponsor about 125 different events across the city of Baltimore with $1,000 sponsorships throughout the year. We do about 10 a month. We have a fellowship program that we do with 2 emerging fellows. They're $20,000 fellowships. We also host about 25 events ourselves over the course of 5 marquee events. Some of them are festivals and have multiple events as a part of them. And so, you know, our work is really to help empower Black creatives through training and development, gig opportunities, and advocating through a lens of cultural equity. So I will stop there. Thanks so much.
All right, I'm passing it over to Ivy Wells with the Berlin Arts District.
Good morning, everyone. I am Ivy Wells, the Director of Economic and Community Development for the town of Berlin. I run the Berlin Main Street program and also the Arts and Entertainment District. So I wear 3 hats plus psychiatrist for the town of Berlin. Just going to put that out there. You could go to the next slide, please. One of the things that we are actually, I'm going to start with a little bit of history about what our Arts and Entertainment District is. Some of the slides that you'll see pertain to some of the questions that we'll be talking about later about building capacity and partnerships. So first, let me tell you a little bit about the A&E District in Berlin. When you talk about connection and disconnection, our main hub of our A&E District falls within the town limits, a commercial district downtown where you have all of your shops and your restaurants. Then you jump over Route 113, and we also have a corridor called the Flower Street Arts District, which is literally completely on the other side of the highway. And the reason that was included in our arts district way back when was we were really trying to encourage artists to move into town to be able to take advantage of all of the benefits that the district offered. Many artists did not take advantage of that, but we still wanted to include that parts of our art initiatives in that district to hopefully encourage artists to move there. One of the partnerships that we did was we worked with a nonprofit called We Heart Berlin to be able to raise money to paint the basketball courts. And you're seeing a picture of that on your screen right now. And that took a variety of partnerships that I'm sure that we'll get into in a little bit. If you could go to the next slide. Our Arts District is under the Town of Berlin umbrella. A few years ago, it was its own nonprofit, and due to some issues with the nonprofit, it now became under the umbrella of the Town of Berlin again. And for the first year, the mayor and council, they were actually our board of directors, so to speak. But we now have our own advisory board. And what we did was we had some community meetings, and we wanted to find out what the community wanted in our A&E district. And believe it or not, so many people wanted more arts activities for kids. So we decided to add a youth liaison to our arts district, to our advisory board. So you can see Opal, she's our youth advisory board member. Some of the other things that we've worked on here, partnerships are the number one thing for us. We don't have the funding to provide the public art or events. We have to partner with other nonprofits. We partner with the community, and I write a lot of grants, Maryland State Arts Council grants, Worcester County Arts Council grants. We do some overlap with DHCD, where we receive Main Street improvement grants that also tie in to our arts district. We've used some of that money last year. We have 2 years ago, we finally were able to install our Reverend Tiddley mural as part of the Beach to Bay Heritage Area partnership. Pollinator Way, our partnership was with our Green Committee here in downtown Berlin to be able to use art to teach environmental issues. We had a flooding problem in that alley, so we decided to paint a mural, which kids, they hop from sunflower to sunflower. They learn about the bees and stormwater. And then to the right of that, we have pollinator gardens that with the flooding, we've got, we had them specially built in the alleyway right next to Island Creamery. And so we partnered with them for that mural. We're getting ready to work on a historic mural in our downtown alley. Next slide. Oh, that's it. I'm sure we'll get into the questions. I prepared my slideshow for some of the questions that we were going to be asked, so I'm sure we'll get back to that. But I mean, I'm open to any kinds of questions. You can email me, call me. I've been doing this since 2014 here in Berlin.
Great. Thank you, Ivy. We definitely will be getting back to all of that. And I'd like to pass it over to Monica Herber with the Catonsville Arts District. And you were still on mute.
Oh, I knew that was going to happen. Hi, everybody. I'm Monica Herber. I'm the Executive Director of the Baltimore County Arts Guild and the Catonsville Arts District. It's good to be here this morning. The Catonsville Arts District is the first arts district in Baltimore County, and it was designated in July 1 of 2020. This was sort of set up as an agreement, with support from Baltimore County, and the Baltimore County Arts Guild is the managing entity of the district. The geographical area is basically Frederick Road, about 1.5 miles of the Frederick Road area, and it also extends out to include one of our popular music venues, the Lerman Theater on Bloomsbury Avenue. The Catonsville Arts District, of course, they looked at there was sort of talking about what would be a good area for creating the first arts district in Baltimore County. And, considering, Catonsville was designated as Music City, Maryland in 2002. It has like I stated, the Lerman Theater and other music venues and restaurants, so it seemed like the good location. We have 6 art education businesses, 20 art sort of retail businesses in the area, and also we were able to acquire, the Guild was able to acquire a building in 2021, which has now become our local community art center. So basically, I am the person in charge of the district, and I have basically one part-time person, and we just actually were able to bring on someone with the guild, which is managing the clubhouse. So that's technically inside the district and part of that. So we have a 16-member advisory board, and that are very engaged in the processes and things going on. So one of our major projects, which is shows in the slide, was our public arts project that we just completed this year. And next slide, please. And in Catonsville, there are a lot of community stakeholders and community organizations that are really engaged in the area. This is one of our festivals, so partnering with these different organizations is really important to us. Next slide. And Catonsville also has about 9 or 10 murals that have been established. So obviously, they're very passionate about the arts here in Catonsville, and being designated as Music City, Maryland, they have a lot of pride in that history here. So that's part of our programming. Next slide. And this is one of our festivals that we had outside of the clubhouse, really trying to incorporate the different cultures and bringing in a lot of diversity into the area. I just want to mention one other thing, that one major project that started right away when we got here because of the history of Catonsville was the Maryland Heritage Area did a music study here. So again, this was a central theme for us in the Catonsville Arts District. And one other partner that's been essential to me has been involved with the district is the Catonsville Chamber of Commerce. So I'll speak about that later. I think I'm good.
Great, thank you, Monica. And we're going to end up circling back to you to kick us off for this next question. But this next question will be asked for all of our arts districts. And next slide, please. But we want everyone to speak about this because it is so important. So Monica, what are the existing partnerships that you identify as critical to your arts and entertainment district mission? And can be including sort of how these partnerships have added value to your mission and impacted programming and initiatives overall.
Of course, our relationship with Baltimore County is key to our financial support, access to resources, expertise, and broader community engagement. So the Baltimore County provides most of our funding for the district. We do get funding from other grants and that kind of thing, but they've been essential in sort of providing that basis and also sort of finding tax incentives and other reasons for the people to locate here to the district. There also is the planning. So that funding comes from the Department of Economic Workforce Development. So that's our main partner with Baltimore County. And then I want to mention also the Department of Planning. I think that they're a key player for us because they have commercial revitalization grant funding that we receive from them. And they've really been essential in terms of the support for our ecosystem and engaging with businesses. Their grants help really spark some of our programming and creating incentives for business collaborations. They were essential to us in terms of when we first got started, our branding grants, and also for promotion. We just created a new website. They were essential for that as well. As far as other, the state is another really important. Of course, Maryland State Art Council is essential for the funding that we receive from them. But I want to mention Maryland Heritage Area Authority as well. They also have been a great funder for us in terms of establishing sort of the history of the district. We're a big player for the Maryland Heritage a landscape grant and music city study that we did. They've given us a large like over $15,000 to sort of establish music concerts and everything to activate our new, basically new arts and entertainment district, the Arts and Entertainment Center, the Catonsville Clubhouse, excuse me. And they're also going to be really instrumental moving forward, I think, because they also have capital money that will help us really establish more infrastructure in the district, sort of identifying the district visually, and also building relationships with the historic Black History District in the area. So there's some overlap there. And I definitely want to mention, oh, I forgot our delegate and our councilman. They've been essential. They're really advocates for the arts in the area. They're key players in helping us navigate those state and the county in terms of processes and just experience and how to make those connections. And lastly, I just want to talk about, we have a lot of partners that we deal with, but you know, I would be remiss to not mention the Catonsville Chamber of Commerce. Since I've started, Namita, the director there, has been really great, working with me in terms of just getting to know the landscape of the area, collaborating with other businesses. She knows the infrastructure. We work together on events. We've just finished doing a contest for the banner contest for the holiday that involved the Catonsville High School. You know, really working at what the priorities are for the district. And you know, it's sort of a two-pronged approach for like planning and sort of thinking about how we can work with the stakeholders in Catonsville to really communicate like how to do things well, and what are the main business, you know, what are the businesses looking at for that. We have a grant from the Catonsville Historical Society that is key to our planning moving forward. They also were the funders of a huge, we did a public arts master plan. So that was a very key instrument in this last year and moving forward as we progress as an arts district. And then also there's a few community associations that I've engaged with in terms of helping artists set up as have economic opportunities. That's Music City, Maryland, and also the Chamber, because we work with them on their with their Frederick Road Fridays and their farmers market. So we have a lot of partners, but I think those are the main ones that stick out.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And to everyone, just so you know, the panelists sort of identified different but similar partnerships throughout our district. So in order for us to not overlap completely with some of these highlights, you might hear shifting critical partnerships, but of course, our funders and the role of our cities and states are so important for all of us. So thank you so much for kicking that off, Monica. And with that, I'd love to pass it over to you, Ivy, to speak a little bit more about the partnerships in Berlin, and especially touching a little bit on that aspect of how tourism and the tourism seasons in the area impact what those partnerships look like.
Sure. Thanks, Emily. If you could go back to my slides, that'll help me remember. And plus it gives you something awesome to look at. Could you go back to my slides? I think there are a few. There you go. Keep going. There, we'll start. Whoop. The basketball court. We'll start with that. The next slide. Perfect. Thank you. So like I said before, the Berlin A&E district is sprawled in our downtown and also in our residential area, where we have a park, Henry Park it's Henry Park, and the main attraction to that park is the basketball courts. There's a pavilion there. It's really beautiful. We just put bathrooms in there, and we actually put lighting in there because of the basketball court became so popular. But how did this happen? The community on Flower Street came to a mayor and council meeting and said, we really want to do something about our basketball court. It needed some help. We wanted to install pride in the community, and the mayor and council they loved the idea, but where were we going to get funding for it? So we reached out to a nonprofit called We Heart Berlin. And let me also start by saying Berlin is only about 5,000 population here. So there's a lot of overlapping. There's, I'm involved in a variety of things. Other nonprofits, you may have an executive director who sits on a board of another nonprofit. So we're all this small town interconnected family here, and everything. We all need each other in order to survive. So we reached out to We Heart Berlin, and they raised the funding for it. And we gave them the permission to be able to go ahead and hire an artist, and artist came out and he designed the mural. And then we had people of the community actually come out and paint that mural. And then we had a big party, and it was a really inspirational thing that we did, because the Flower Street corridor of our Arts Entertainment District, there's some history involved in that area of Berlin where they didn't even have paved sidewalks until the 1960s. It's a lower income area, and for us to be able to bring this, it's the largest piece of art we have here in Berlin. For us to be able to bring that to our Arts Entertainment District on the other side of Route 113 was really, it was provocative, and it was very uplifting for the community. And I mean, there's kids playing basketball, all the time. They're laying down, they're taking selfies. It's really incredible. You can go to the next slide. So like I was saying before, another partner we worked with was the Beach to Bay Heritage Area, which I sit on the board, and their office is actually located right across from my office in this small little welcome center we have here in Berlin. And we also worked with our horticultural committee. And one of the things that we like to do here in Berlin, especially through our Arts Entertainment District, is we'd like to educate people by using art. So when our art is beautiful and it's incredible to look at, but if you can also learn from it and engage the younger generation to be able to be attracted to the art, and then also, hey, well, we have Pollinator Way here and it's beautiful, but it's also functional. So we had a variety of partners for Pollinator Way. We had some Maryland State Arts Council grant funding. We had some donations that were made for this. And the Beach to Bay Heritage Area also helped pay for the gardens. So this was a group project that we were all worked on together. And it's, there's a long line for Island Creamery. And the catalyst for this was the line went right down this alley, and it was gross. The alley was gross. It was just wet, and there was leaves, and it was, it looked like a scary alley. So what we did was we decided to make it to add the gardens and also do the art on the asphalt, on the sidewalk. And now it's not a scary alley anymore, and kids have something to do while they're waiting in line for ice cream. The Reverend Tinley mural, we had to get the permission from the Historic District Commission for the town. And I don't know if anyone out there has had experience with art and modern art and history. So we had picked a building, and the building owner allowed us to be able to paint this mural. And then when they saw the mural, they did not want the mural on their building any longer because they thought that it ruined the history of the building. So this was a 2-year process. This was our first major mural in Berlin. The building owners didn't want murals on their buildings at all, and I tried to work with several of them. We had a variety of ideas for murals, and the property owners didn't want the murals, and the Historic District Commission, for the most part, voted them down. This was the first one that we were able to get on a building. Brieter Hill on Commerce Street finally said, okay, we are going to, we love the mural idea. We want it. We worked with the Beach to Bay Heritage Area as a, excuse me, there is a African-American history through art trail here on the Eastern Shore. And of course, Berlin wanted to be a part of it. Reverend Tinley was born here in Berlin. He's the godfather of gospel music. We wanted a big mural to commemorate his birthplace. And we also worked with, because I run the Main Street program here, we also offer a facade grant program. So facade grant includes painting. So we use some of Maryland Main Street funding, facade grant funding, to be able to help pay for this mural, along with Beach to Bay Heritage Area grant funding, to be able to get the funding for this mural. And some of Reverend Tinley's relatives came out when we unveiled the mural. We hired Jay Coleman, an artist out of Tacoma Park, who's an incredible artist. He came out and he painted it, and people were watching. They came from all over the state to be able to watch him paint this mural in downtown Berlin. So, like I said, we try to use art as an educational tool, but we require a lot of different partnerships. And then at the top, our next project is going to be, we have two old advertisements on two of our buildings, and just several months ago we finally got the okay from the building owner to be able to restore those murals. We didn't know what they looked like, and we put a blurb out on social media, and someone came forward and said, I think I have these old pictures with the mural in the background, or the ad in the background. So we are going to be partnering with the with We Heart Berlin again, and also this is for the most part, it's going to be grant funded from Maryland State Arts Council grant. And then I would be remiss to not say how some of our funding is through the Berlin Chamber of Commerce. Because we are under the town umbrella, we cannot apply for an alcohol permit. So whenever we have events, we go through our Berlin Chamber of Commerce. They get the alcohol permit, and they'll make a donation to the Arts Entertainment District or back to the town of Berlin, because ultimately the town funds my position and most of the work, the marketing money, the advertising money, most of the work that I do here. Maryland State Arts Council, the operating grant helps to fund a lot of the entertainment that we use for our events.
Thank you, Ivy.
Sure.
All right, and if we could go back to the slide with that initial question, and Lady Brion, we would love to hear about the existing partnerships that are critical for the Black Arts District.
Hey, folks, again, my computer is being a hater. So if you're wondering why my camera isn't on, it is because technology does not like me this morning. All right. So I'm going to quickly go through some of our partnerships. I kind of put them in categories. I'm just going to list them and give you an example or two in the interest of time. So first, I would say for the Black Arts District, we really value our community partners. So examples include, for example, No Boundaries is an organization in our district. And we actually have a formal MOU with them that dictates what each of the parties gets from the arrangement, which I encourage as a strategy to ensure the relationships are mutually beneficial when you have partnerships in place with community partners, right? They also help us to become more connected to the community that we represent as a newer entity in West Baltimore, as they are a longer standing entity. Another example is Intersection of Change. This is a 25-year-old long-standing institution. They sit on our board. And they are also a partner with us in a lot of programming, as well as a co-developer for a multi-million-dollar development project that we are currently in the middle of. And so we were super excited to be able to partner with them in this way, because we wanted to make sure that as we start developing the arts district, that we're also supporting longstanding institutions that have been holding down the fort since before we were in existence. Another example is Art Social Club. This is one of the oldest institutions in our district. We actually hold monthly programming at their venue just to make sure that we're putting money in their pockets, to make sure that we amplify what they're doing and they equally help to amplify what we're doing. I want to make sure that people are seeing this beautiful institution. So that's an example of community partners. Examples of institutional partners, right? So we have a partnership with Center Stage of Baltimore. We host our larger events there because we don't really have that many large scale venues in our district currently. So like when we do our International Poetry Festival, or when we had our Black Pride Ball, and I had like 700 people in attendance, those are events that we do through a partnership with Center Stage, which is outside of our district, but It's been a great space that have housed us a bunch. Druid Heights CDC is in our district, and they actually serve as our fiscal sponsor. We are a 501c3, but in Baltimore, they require that you have that you sort of exist within a CDC in order to receive funding. And so we have a fiscal sponsorship model C, so that we can be an independent entity, but still receive funds from their institution. Another example is Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. It is actually a local advocacy-based think tank in Baltimore. They were a co-founder of the Black Arts District, and they again sit on our board. They support us with fundraising, and they also help to advise us on political affairs and action. So that's a very unique partnership that we have as well. Next would be individual partnerships. So we sort of work with a number of creatives in Baltimore. And like an example is Shinya Wright, who supports the Baltimore or who runs the Baltimore scene, and Nate Kauser of the Artist Exchange. These are two really active and respected artists in Baltimore who we both pay and partner with to help curate a monthly series that I mentioned that we have at our social club. And this collaboration is equally highlighted and beneficial for both parties, right? So we all are looked at as the curators of this event, and we find it important to make sure that when we're doing our programming, it's not just in silos, but we help to build other creatives and creative institutions as we put on our programming. Also, art influencers is a way that we help to get the word out and amplify the things that we're doing. So they are basically brand ambassadors, and we either pay them or we have some other arrangement that might be, sharing their stuff or supporting them in some other kind of way. And they help us to expand our reach to particular artist communities that we may not be as connected to. So that is a strategy that we use regarding partnerships. And lastly, government, right? One thing I want to mention in Baltimore, and Emily, I don't know if you were going to speak to this, but we, unlike some arts districts, we collectively organize to have our districts governed by the local government here, which is the Department of Planning for us. We wanted to make sure we had representation and sort of an ombudsman at the city level, and also organize for them to provide funding for our arts districts, which didn't exist prior to. So we all collectively got together, said, listen, we're one group, one cohort of arts districts, and y'all need to support us because we're doing great work and, supporting the city of Baltimore. So the city of Baltimore needs to support us. We were super excited to bring that into fruition. And so we get, a mixed pot from Maryland State Arts Council and the Department of Planning, which has been super helpful in stabilizing our arts districts here. I echo, we also have relationships with our delegates, our senators, our councilmen can't really, make it happen otherwise. So overall, these partnerships exist to ensure, the Black Arts District is accountable to our community, successful in reaching our goals, that we have a base rooted in community and also far-reaching, and that we have the capacity to implement the programming that we set out to do. There's a bunch of funders that I did not name, but they are also in the partnership bag. Okay, I'm done.
That was so comprehensive. Thank you so much. We're running a little bit behind schedule, so I'm going to quickly run through one of the partners that I wanted to highlight, but we will just keep moving through. But for the Bromo Arts District, our partnerships with our creative organizations and artists are extremely critical to Bromo's mission, which is uplifting our creatives and creating a strong vision for the district. So we've done a lot to be able to leverage these relationships. And so to achieve this, when I first took this position several years ago, I launched my own listening session to hear about the challenges and successes of our creative organizations and artists, and really hear about how they wanted to partner with the Bromo Arts District. So really taking it as a fresh start for us to be able to implement new ways in which we're working together. The main feedback that I was hearing from this group is that overall there is a lack of strong connection to our other creative organizations in the district. So that image, we have a really long district and people maybe at the southern end didn't know about the people in the north and vice versa. So really creating a stronger connection, and that there was a need for increased district branding, and that overall people wanted assistance with marketing and promotion to help gain new audiences. So because of all of the feedback that we heard, we relaunched a larger Bromo Art Walk, which is that biannual event I mentioned in the beginning, and provided and offered stipends for our creative organizations and artists to participate, which helped establish a robust programming schedule for the event. Stipends could fund programming, staffing, exhibitions, all different types of things. And each event we've seen has continued to grow. We have on average 30 organizations that participate, over 100 artists that are involved, whether they are performing or have an exhibition or managing the actual space or programming that is a part of it. Over 20 retailers are involved, and we have roughly over 2,000 registered attendees for this event. So as the event organizer, we really are focusing on establishing those partnerships between the creative organizations, between our artists and the creative organizations, the creative programming at our retailer spaces. So we're working in a lot of different ways to make sure that everyone is connected and working together for this larger event. So because of the Bromo Art Walk and the partnerships with our creatives, we've been able to develop new collaborations that have continued outside of these events. We've established those stronger relationships with our creative organizations and artists. And by each organization participating, they're uplifting all of the other groups. So to have the Hippodrome Theater hosting and participating next to maybe one of our newer and smaller galleries, everyone is working together to create this strengthened brand for the district, but also the cross-pollination of audiences and establishing an accessible way for newcomers or people who are very familiar with the district to be able to explore different spaces. So the most frequent feedback we hear during and after the event is that people had no idea all of this existed in Bromo, which is really wonderful. The partnerships that we've established and strengthened have helped our constituents, our visitors, even our casual observers of the district see this grander vision that we have for the future of the district. And it's helped create that cohesive community that was lacking just a few years ago. This event has also personally helped us gain trust from our key stakeholders and shown our commitment, whether it's through funding or the marketing and promotion that we're doing for these organizations. And again, just bringing together those connections that help support their programming and their initiatives long after the event ends. Some of the examples, even in terms of how this has impacted us, is that after our first 2 Bromo Art Walks, we launched a new strategic plan. And the feedback that we received through that, I mean, we had so many responses for our surveys and our visioning sessions. People were really engaged and involved because they were seeing sort of this spark in the district, and we're jumping on that to be involved. And of course, the strategic plan and their feedback helped continues to drive our key priorities for the district. So overall, the partnering with our creative organizations and artists has really helped us achieve so much for our district mission. It's helped create this stronger sense of place. It's encouraged more open collaboration and really building on the success of all of our neighbors to help create a vibrant and accessible cultural hub in downtown Baltimore. So ran through that a little bit, but I'd love to move to the next slide so we can talk about priority projects. So Lady Brown, I'm going to ask you first, but how does your district determine your upcoming priority projects? How do evolving priorities influence the development of new and existing partnerships?
Word. All right. So I have a few points here. First and foremost, our 3 to 5 year strategic plan. We take it seriously around here. We actually do monthly check-ins to ensure that we are still aligned with that strategic plan. So ultimately, our priorities have been set, and we're making sure that we're sticking to them as often as possible. So I would encourage folks, if y'all don't have regular check-ins with your strategic plan, you should, because you wouldn't recognize how often you stray from the work. All right. Next is at the creation of the Black Arts District, we actually created 4 focus areas that that actually suggest, right, how we achieve our mission. And so when an activity hits all or most of those focus areas, we see that as something that is right for the organization. So that's also a way that we kind of keep ourselves within particular bounds. Next, we have an advisory committee. that we put together and launched last year, and it helps to hold us accountable and suggest the direction that the institution should be going as it relates to our events. And so we check in with them quarterly, and we also allow them to sit on event-specific committees that are happening with the organization. Finally, we do a ton of evaluations, right? We have a staff person whose job is 75% evaluations. And so we are constantly shifting and reshaping to make sure that we're getting it right and resetting those priorities as necessary, because ultimately we are trying to accomplish goals. And so the output is not really important, right? That can change as often as necessary, but how are we meeting the goals that we set out? Again, through that plan, through our committee, through those bucket areas that I talked about. And so, you know, we might scrap a program, scrap an event, scrap a series if we find that it's not working. And I want to also note that this year, for the first time, we're actually creating a discretionary pot of money for our creative community sponsorships that I mentioned earlier. We give out about 10 or so every month, and they're about $1,000 each. And so we have a discretionary pot for our coordinator. So when there are new things that pop up that we want to support that we didn't already plan for, then the way that we can support them is with additional sponsorship money if we're not able to like really, you know, latch on and be a real partner in that event. We also are giving a discretionary pot to our program director, who can also decide throughout of the year to support different initiatives that we didn't previously plan for, especially if they take place in or are in partnership with our district specific entities. So that's a way that we sort of address things that pop up throughout the year that may not have been identified previously as a particular priority or a planned event. That is it.
That was wonderful and so helpful to hear about the ways in which your team adapts to changing priorities. I was taking notes. All right. Monica, I would love to hear from you regarding your priority projects and how that shifts for the Catonsville Arts District.
Yeah, thanks, Lady Brion. Yeah, I definitely got some information out of that as well. We also have a strategic plan, you know, part of our agreement that we also look at because of our funding with the county. There are certain goals that we need to achieve. So that certainly sets up some of our priority as well. We also have an advisory committee that guides a lot of what we focus on, or sort of the priorities for what projects we're working on at the time. Because of we do rely on different funding sources. A lot of times that sort of sets the goals for what we're happening at the moment. For example, we have a large grant that we got from the Catonsville Historical Society based around public arts and public wayfinding. And we for, like I mentioned before, we had done a master plan. So we have completed that, and using that, we're going to move into the next part of that. So that's sort of, so the funding does sort of guide what we're focused on, but we also, like I mentioned, our partnership with the Catonsville Chamber of Commerce and our community stakeholders, you know, we really engage with them to sort of see what are the priorities in terms of helping the infrastructure going on in Catonsville. Catonsville has a lot of events that they do on their own. So we sort of, you know, tap into those and sort of look at what's essential and what will really bolster the district moving forward. So that's like, for instance, right now, there's a whole part of the issue in Catonsville is sort of, there's a parking concern. So we're sort of working with them with that committee to sort of decide, you know, how we can use our resources to support their initiatives moving forward and helping them with all of that. And so that's good.
Great. Thank you so much, Monica. All right. Could we go to the next slide, please? All right, so this is split up onto 2 slides, so you can actually move through to the next one. But To key us off, all of our districts have specific characteristics that create unique challenges for creatives. As you look at the next 5 years, so first of all, what are some of those challenges and how have you worked to overcome them? And as you look at the next 5 years, are you creating any new partnerships to help specifically address some of those unique challenges that are brought up? So I'd love for Ivy to kick us off for this question, please.
Okay, so we're talking about challenges. Berlin is 7 miles from Ocean City. For about 8 months out of the year, our population is around 5,000. But for 3 to 4 months out of the year, there's hundreds of thousands of people making their way to Ocean City, and we want to be able to capture some of that here. But what do we do the rest of the time? We have all these people in Berlin. They're looking at the murals, they're shopping, they're coming to our farmers markets, they're coming to events. So what do we do in the off season? During one of the initiatives that we started during COVID, when everything was shut down, businesses weren't allowed to open. It was literally a ghost town. But people still wanted to get out of their houses. They still wanted to walk around. I mean, kids weren't even in school. People were just looking for things to do. So what we did, and we can, because of COVID, we still continue to do that now to engage the community, to get people to come to Berlin in the off season. We reached out to local artists and we had their artwork put into all the windows in the downtown shops with a QR code to their website or their Etsy page on where people could purchase their art. So we turned the shops in Berlin, the windows, into a virtual outdoor art gallery for people to be able to, they wanted to go out and they wanted to enjoy art. They could go in anywhere, but they can still enjoy art and they can also purchase art. So we still continue, we do that for the holidays. We encourage local artists to come and put their artwork in some of the windows with the businesses that will allow it. And with the QR code that directs people to their websites. The other challenge is parking. We definitely have a parking problem here. I'm sure that, all of you out there have a parking problem. We looked into paid parking. I am not a fan of paid parking. I feel that when you have paid parking, someone won't order dessert because they're worried about the meter, or they won't try on that last dress that they keep eyeballing over there in the corner because they're looking at their watch wondering if their park app is going to run out. So I don't believe in paid parking. We have to work through our parking challenge. And so one of the partnerships that we're looking towards in the future is that we have 4 churches downtown, and the church parking lots are used on Sundays, but not for the rest of the time. So we're hoping to create a partnership with some of the churches to be able to use their parking during the off hours when Monday through Friday, when we're really busy here in the summertime, and be able to kind of work and exchange for that. So that's pretty much our challenge, is to try to capture an audience in the off season and also try to bring them, the people who are here to visit Ocean City, to bring them here during the on season.
Great. Thank you, Ivy. And would love to pass this directly over to you, Monica, to share a little bit more about those relationships in Catonsville.
Great. Ivy, I just want to say, keep working on that park. We actually have, Catonsville has worked with partnerships with the businesses and churches, and they have worked, and that's part of our project to sort of move forward, is to help with the wayfinding to locate those spaces that are available after hours. So I just want to encourage that. So one of the biggest things in Catonsville, as far as the arts district goes, is we don't have a lot of artist studios and or residential areas in Catonsville for artists. So moving forward, I really think like moving creating relationships with some of the current business landlords and also realtors in the area to sort of really investigate some of those possibilities. One idea is to also work with the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development in Baltimore County to sort of explore best practices for affordable artist housing and in the state arts district. And also there are nonprofit real estate developers. One is that I'm aware of is Art Space Projects, and they're actually doing something at the Ambassador Theater locally on the Liberty Road corridor to sort of investigate, what are some of the how we can work with the existing infrastructure moving forward. As far as like capacity building and then also having more artists in the area, we have the other partners moving forward. We do, I haven't mentioned that UMBC and CCBC are big partners with us. And I think sort of moving forward, really engaging them in terms of like internship programs and sort of helping out with our, different projects that we could use their strengths with. And another partnership I think we will investigate is the state highway. Frederick Road is a state highway, and there are a lot of restrictions in terms of signage and project, what is allowed on state highways. And because that's our main thoroughfare, I think we really need to sort of sit down and work with them and figure out a way to, to really understand that piece. And so that will be something moving forward. And in terms of programming and accessible partners, really engaging the preschools and the cooperative other educational institutions that surround the area to really engage the youth. And the Arts District, just particularly for our at our clubhouse, to like really showing how that arts are really instrumental in the the health and welfare of our children and just creative play. We also have other business partners like art, the art institute, like business partners that we could engage with too at our facility to sort of bring that more into the district. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Monica. All right, moving on to the next slide. And we're going to try to keep this within the next within a few minutes, just so that we can open this up to questions for the group. But want to talk a little bit about capacity building before switching gears. So understanding that all of our districts have additional capacity and staffing needs, what are your ongoing or future strategies to expand the capacity of your district? And for some people, they might also want to answer about what is your ideal staffing structure look like at your district? So Lady Brion, would love to have you start us off.
Absolutely. I just want to say that I should have read your run through because, I had answers for the last question and it wasn't for me. All right. So here we go.
We can switch gears if you want to switch back to that one.
No. This is a me issue. I should read more comprehensively. Okay. So capacity and staffing needs and strategies. Okay. So as a district, again, we were established officially in 2019, but we became a nonprofit in 2020 and started building from there, right? And so I've worked, honestly, to grow the organization and staff incrementally, right? So we went from an organization of one, it was just me, where I paid myself like $25,000 to do the work by myself, to a few interns and some friends volunteering, to ultimately, again, establishing the Arts District in 2020. And then we hired our first full-time staff person in 2021, to now currently having a staff that is full-time, 5 people. And then we have about 4, what I call long-term contractors. And in 2024, we'll be establishing a larger staff of about 8 people with 5 long-term contractors or consulting firms, and we'll be closer to $1 million budget. And so it has expanded rapidly over the last 3 years. But I think we're going to try to stabilize it in 2024, and our next staff increase will be once we open our new art center in a few years. And so ultimately, the way that I look at it is I'm hoping that our staff can reflect equal percentages of time allocation to the necessary things like fundraising, friend raising, marketing and communication, outreach and operations. Like that's how I know we have an ideal staffing structure, when we have an equal percentage in all the parts that make this organization run smoothly. What are the strategies? Having multi-year funders, right? Trying to identify those larger funders, and that really does mean expanding beyond Baltimore or regional funding oftentimes, because we're all kind of tapping the same pots. It also means diversifying our fundraising strategy, so not being totally reliant on the funding we get from local and state government and foundations, but being more intentional and creative about our approach, so that we can really sustain this rapid growth over the last few years. And we constantly do sort of an inventory of where we are and if it's working, and how we might shift. And that's really how we identify where we are now and have been moving towards that and growing towards that every year, recognizing where the deficiencies have been. So that's what I would say. I don't know if that is the answer I was looking for, but feel free to ask more questions. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, and we'll definitely be able to open up to more questions in a moment, but that was great to hear about how the Black Arts District is doing it, and to say it has been impressive to watch over the last few years. So congratulations. So Ivy, I would love to hear a little bit more about your structure and capacity needs and strategies in the Berlin Arts District.
So our structure is myself and my assistant, Allison, and a lot of people who want to be a part of it, but we don't have funding, obviously, we do have a lot of people who want to help us expand our district. And when I say that, I mean expand the actual physical location of our district. There are a lot of people. I always like to say the entire community is pretty much our staff, because I can't walk out of my office and walk down the street without somebody coming up to me and saying, hey, we really need to do this. So I say, would you like to volunteer? And we can make that happen. And they'll say, well, I just wanted to run that idea by you. Also, the business owners, I also consider those part of our staff. I don't know what else to call them, because our arts and entertainment district, the whole idea of an A&E district is to encourage economic development through the arts. I mean, that's not the whole idea, but that's what we're focused on here. We try to encourage artists to live here. We try to bring art into everything that we do. We're having a Christmas parade in 2 weeks, and we've hired a local artist to design the trophies. We're not going to go to the trophy shop and order those trophies from the 70s with the little guy on the top, holding the thing. So we try to incorporate artists for pretty much everything that we do. What is our ideal staffing structure? I kind of like it the way it is. Sometimes there's something to be said for a small staff. When you have too many cooks in the kitchen, you end up with too much salt. So I really like the way that we're staffed here. I mean, my assistant Allison is really incredible. We have a great volunteer base here. There's a lot of retirees who assist and help, and our partnerships, a lot of times, they'll just come and join the A&E team while the project is going on. So I think that we're doing pretty well here. We like it the way it is here in Berlin. Sometimes we wing it and we go by the seat of our pants, but it works for us.
That's great to hear that you're satisfied with your staffing structure currently.
Yeah, and make lemonade out of a bunch of lemons and then add some
Exactly.
tequila.
It's perfect.
Right.
Well, I'll quickly round us out before opening it up to questions for the Bromo Arts District. I mean, as the sole staff person, I definitely would like to expand our capacity in so many different ways and are currently focusing on board development to assist with this. So this is really focusing on, board training, establishing new board committees, and providing support to the board so that, instead of it just being solely fundraising for the board, it's really focusing on sweat equity, that they're really taking on projects that can expand our capacity in this time when we are just one staff person. So it's really important, and we're focusing on the ways in which we can expand board engagement and participation so that they're really coming into more of some of those staff roles at times, but assisting hands-on with certain projects and initiatives. And then the other way in which we're expanding our capacity is continuing to look at our partnership with Downtown Partnership of Baltimore, which is our management entity. And this is, it's a larger nonprofit. There's a marketing and communications team, homeless outreach, economic development, so many different teams already here. And so tapping into that capacity already that is built out and structured at this larger organization instead of, creating new departments that already exist within our management entity. So this is a long process. It's taking us several years to really figure out what that looks like, but continuing to develop that relationship so that it's beneficial for both organizations. So that was the quick response for that question. And now I'd like to be able to open it up to any questions. I'm not sure if there are any in the chat that came in earlier, but we are all here to answer questions specifically about some of the items that were brought up or anything else that might be of interest to our attendees. All right, Sue, you are welcome to either type it in or unmute yourself. I think you can unmute yourself.
I think I
Yes.
unmuted myself. Thank you all. It is clear that the passion and commitment to the arts and all the benefits that it generates, placemaking, telling the story, connecting people with each other is driving you folks and keeping you from the brink of insanity. But I bet you there are a few days when that is what is happening. Several of you talked a little bit about advisory boards, and I appreciate the diversity of staffing levels, the lean and mean to something that is really thriving. Well, all of you are thriving. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about the advisory board structure that you have put together. That's certainly something that we've identified as a need in the Denton Arts Way, and merging with or interconnecting with our local Main Street program and Chamber of Commerce. That makes sense, but I'm curious, how often do you meet? And how is it that you've shifted from like what you were saying, Emily, in terms of having a board and actively involving them in committees? Are you also doing the same thing with your advisory board? So how do they function effectively as your conscience?
I'll go real quick. Oh, no, Emily, you were about to go.
No, go for it.
Okay. If I'm understanding correctly, so for the Black Arts District, because we are, again, a 501c3, we have a board, like a governing board, right? And they're not really programmatic, right? So they do the fiduciary work and they do the larger governing of the organization as it relates to policies and practices and that kind of stuff, right? And we ask them to come and volunteer every now and again at a program or two, but that's really all the work that they do at that level. Our advisory committee functions differently, whereas we actually put out a call to members across the creative community for the explicit purpose of meeting quarterly or sometimes a little more frequently if necessary. And they hold us accountable by We bring to them a presentation. Here's where we are with our strategic plan. Here's the failures. Here's the successes. Here's the events that we've done. Here's the failures. Listen, we lean into those failures. We are transparent in that way, so people can be honest and upfront with, what we need to change or what's going well. And we also invite them to sit on subcommittees for events that are happening. So for instance, we do an international festival in March. Some of the women on our advisory committee want to actually sit on that planning committee to make sure that, it's in alignment with what they want to see happen and et cetera. So for that committee, again, we're bringing to them quarterly or, 5 times a year, where we are as an institution and checking in with them, and we take their feedback and we try to implement it as much as possible. So they don't necessarily have teeth, but they are an accountability measure for us, and it's open to folks in the creative community to join as they see fit. Yep.
That's really helpful, and it also clearly engages them directly in the work. They roll up their hand, they can plan and give you ideas, but they can also be on site in a particular role in terms of helping with the production management if they want to, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Sue, you got it.
Yep. So it's a real force multiplier. I see that. Yep. And they don't have to get bored with mundane governing process and procedure and that kind of stuff.
They don't care about that at all. I can promise you that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you for jumping in with that, Lady Brion. There's actually a question in the chat from Monica, but to Lady Brion, to speak a little bit more about how you do support your staff at staff.
I want to make sure I'm understanding. When you say, how do I support my staff? You mean like pay them or? Oh, okay. So Monica, listen, okay. It's a struggle bus. I don't know who told us we could just be out here growing so rapidly. But here's what I will say. We have grown incrementally over the last 3 years, right? So when I say grown incrementally, I mean our program budget started small and then they began expanding. Our actual salary started small and then they began expanding, because I believe that the budget is both a guiding document but also a moral statement. So I never wanted this like lopsided funding model where you had the executive director making an extreme difference than the other people who work in the organization, right? And so everybody's salary grew incrementally as the organization's budget grew. I will also say that we were very fortunate to receive ARPA funding. It was our first federal grant. And so we got $1 million over 3 years. So we established new programs and brought on new positions there. And we've been able to leverage that to attract some additional funding to support these positions. I talked about expanding into 2024 with new positions, but that is totally dependent upon the fact that we're currently being courted by the Mellon Foundation. If they, for whatever reason, say no, all those job descriptions are coming down from the website, and we're gonna try again. So, be clear, we are growing as we are finding these funding sources. That's just the way we've been able to operate. And we also have this, sort of interesting sponsorship model where we reach out to corporations to help to support like the larger events that we're doing. And so we attract those sponsorship dollars, and that in some ways supports our operating budget for our staff, but mostly that is the way that we do our events. So if we are not able to get enough money in for our programs, again, they get chopped. So we are kind of, strict in how we kind of roll it out, because we recognize that we have a really, really big budget, and it is challenging to hold that up. But as often as we can get in those funding sources, that's how we bring on new positions. I hope that answered your question.
Totally. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to speak a little bit about our advisory board meets every 2 months, and they have been really instrumental in supporting me in terms of project management and facilitating, priorities for the district. And I also have the guild board is more like Lady Brion was talking about, deals with sort of the financial and like the policies, things that happen because they're the managing entity. So I just want to throw that in.
Any other questions? Feel free to just start speaking or drop anything in the chat if you would like. if you have a specific question for one of the panelists. Yeah, Kathy.
Thanks. This has been really informative. I've just loved it. I've been thinking a lot lately, I guess, because Maryland Nonprofits is having a seminar on Wednesday on growing individual giving. And so it's been on my mind just because they're holding the panel. I'm thinking of attending. And I'm just wondering if any of the panelists or any of the visitors who are from A&E districts have a strategy, a plan, have any tips on growing individual giving.
Yeah, I can talk real briefly. I am really excited about this idea. I am borrowing it from some other institutions that I've been learning from, especially in the middle of our capital campaign. We've been talking to a lot of folks about how they sustain. And so we've learned, especially from organizations like Creative Alliance and others, about their huge individual donor group. I don't know what word was next, but essentially they have all of these people who love them, love the work, are connoisseurs of art, and they just give small pots of money every month, right? Like a subscription, like Netflix or Hulu. And they have so many people that it really becomes a large part of their operating budget. So it's, that crowdsourcing, if you will. And I recognize that because we are creative institutions and we have these large base of individuals who support us just by the virtue of the fact that they too are artists and they identify with the work that we do, is a really great sustainable model and doesn't have to give them much. You don't have to give them much in return. So maybe offer some, free tickets to events or some special newsletter, or the list is long what I've seen as the perks, but that's what we're trying to bring forth in the new year. We brought on a new fundraiser and their primary focus is going to be helping to build out that base, because we have a whole lot of folks that follow and support us, but we have not asked for a dime. And I think that could really help to support us in the future. Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? We have a few minutes left. And also feel free to reach out to any of us after this session if you have specific questions or just want to chat. I'm not sure if maybe our emails were sent out earlier, but we can certainly put those in the chat as well.
Hey, this is David coming back. Long time no speak. Can you all hear me? I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Oh, great. Excellent. I'm also having tech difficulties over here, but I just wanted to thank all of our panelists for committing to today and sharing their stories and how they go about establishing partnerships, envisioning partnerships, and addressing staff capacity. I think we all can learn from these conversations, glean a little bit, put faces to names, and do direct outreach thereafter when you really want to drive home a particular question. You can always reach out to me and say, hey, David, I don't have their contact information. Could you send it? And I will immediately. And feel free to look at the chat and grab the information from there as well. I do want to take a moment. Our public art team is here. Let me back up. We have several Maryland State Arts Council staff persons on the call with us today. And I want to say thank you all for joining. I believe I saw Chad. I believe I saw Lizzie. I believe I saw Laura. And Rosa, of course, is here. I think Emily might have been here at one point. So, and we have our newest staff member, Nora. I believe she's still on as well. Any case, I wanted to give a small slither of time while we have 3 minutes left in our conversation for them to jump in and maybe do a public art plug. If you want to still, I don't know, but definitely want to create space for that. Don't think they're coming forth. All right, no problem. But Rosa, did you want to say something? No, she's moving about.
Yeah, David, thank you. I just wanted to mention a little bit about the public art program at MSAC, that how we've been always doing our best to be connected to the A&E district. And can you hear me okay, by the way? Oh, yeah. Because you may notice I was helping on David to bring the slideshow together, and then a lot of images we included are public arts that's specifically located in different part of A&E district and in Maryland state. So I just wanted to add it, and also I shared our website link on the chat that we are like really eager to connect with A&E district directors and then artists in the A&E district to we collaborate with the public art program. So thank you, David, for this opportunity.
Yay. Thank you, Rosa. And again, thank you, panelists, Emily, Ivy, Monica, Brion. We really appreciate your contributions today. To everyone, we're looking again to do this quarterly to meet on important topics. Right now, I think Emily and I are cooking up something about the tax incentives, and we'll circle back with information about how you can make those more attractive to all your constituents, because that's the whole point of the program. All right. But if nothing else, thank you so much to Chad. Thank you for jumping in with the PowerPoint and doing the do. We will see you all soon. I hope you have an enjoyable week, enjoyable holidays, and we'll talk soon. Okay. Thank you, everyone.